14 minutes to 1 on a Saturday afternoon. That was the voice of Collingwood Premiership coach Craig McRae addressing the rumours regarding his personal life that have swirled throughout Melbourne across the summer.
Yeah, it was an ugly story, wasn't it? Ugly partly because the Herald Sun wrote an article last week addressing rumours about someone without naming them. Now, I'm sorry, you either get the story and confirm it and write it and name names, or you don't write it. I didn't like the way that was done. And they did a similar thing with Nathan Buckley some years ago, the Herald Sun, and we can talk about that now because we know that Nathan Buckley's marriage did break up and he's now divorced, I think. Coaches and their personal lives. Now, with Damien Hardwick, I felt that was a relevant story because Damien Hardwick was having an affair with someone within his football club. And I felt it was an inappropriate power situation. I think Richmond were put in a really tough situation with what to do about that. And Damien Hardwick, so much of his trademark surrounded Mrs. Hardwick. So, and we now know, and we suspected and feared at the time, that this could affect his football team and how the players felt about him because he was such a part, Daniel Hardwick, of the Richmond Football Club. And so it came to be. He's still sooking about stuff I wrote about him at the time, but I didn't think it was appropriate.
And the Lachie Neale stuff over the summer, it's like salacious gossip. It sells. And therefore, that's the people, the gossip
and
columnists
again,
around the media world, not the footy writers, but the gossip columnists. Well, gee, they got heaps of copy out of it, didn't they?
Lachie Neale was different again because his former wife, Jules, essentially broke the story. She broke the story on social media, and then his partner, who I think was his partner for a brief period, she had a crack, and there were revenge bikinis and, this and that and the other, and it was driven a lot by the women on social media. Lachie stood down from the captaincy, so it becomes a genuine story. The story now is, will it affect the footy team? And we'll only see what happens in the months to come. But with Craig McRae, I don't think there may have been suggestions, strongly refuted by anyone, that this involved another staffer at the club, which I gather is completely untrue. So it did seem a bit rough for that article to be written, names not named, and so on, and then the club has to step up and do this.
Of course, the fact that the rumours got to the point where he addressed the playing group, he did say in his press conference, what was the number he quoted, 10 or 15 seconds. Now, whether it was 30 seconds or a minute.
When Craig Kelly put out a statement, though, to AFL Media on behalf of the football club, so they felt they needed to do something about it, which again, and then it's jumped on by the Herald Sun, who've started the rumour. I'm sure it was around in social media, but in mainstream media, without naming names, and then get to jump on the story again. It was all a bit distasteful for me.
It's one of those things where clubs can get sort of backed into a corner. One of our sports psychologists used to say, if it's sort of important, make covert overt. In other words, what might have been talked about behind the scenes, sometimes you just got to talk about it in front of the group to say, well, okay, it's out there and it's false. But sometimes the Collingwood obviously felt that they needed to, like Craig must have felt that he needed to make sure anything being thought, said, tell this playing group, and Craig Kelly decided to come out and make the statement on behalf of the club, because that sometimes covert stuff that's unfounded, it's still kind of, some people will believe it. Yeah. So sometimes you just got to come out and actually reject it.
Could the Collingwood players as a group care less what their senior coach was doing in his personal life, if it outwardly or to them as a collective not be affecting his coaching at all?
No, well, certainly not if it doesn't involve anyone else at the club, which was the situation Richmond faced itself with a coach who had just coached the team to win their third flag. Now, looking back, people at Richmond admit now that they knew something was broken at the end of 2020. They knew it at the time, or they feared it. There were players over the next few months who felt very uncomfortable about the situation at the club and what was going on, and their feelings about their coach, who had, it had been about connection and values, etc., had changed. So you couldn't compare the Lachie Neale situation with that because A, he's a player, B, it wasn't involving the club.
No.
But looking for, and then you had to put up with all that a few young Brisbane players had relationship breakups, and that was reported. I mean, that was really rough, I thought. If a 21-year-old...
Trying to make a connection.
Can you remember when you were
Tenuously
21 and you broke up with someone? It's hardly... But, Lee, have you picked up any effect that you're on the board? Are you close with Chris Fagan?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of how's it going to affect the team, nil. How's it going to affect Lachie himself? Well, that's kind of all a bit unknown. I mean, you've got to be good at putting your life into compartments. In other words, your footy part of it is one compartment. But obviously his children are going to be living in another state. So that creates a difficulty
and you
and
don't
a complexity
buy suggestions that, perhaps wives and partners...
No. To be honest, I'm not in a position to know that. But I've heard nothing in that space that would indicate that's an issue around the back rooms.
Wouldn't expect you to divulge any details, even if you say yes to this. Have you actually had a one-on-one chat to Lachie since the story?
No. Plenty. I mean, the club obviously did. I must admit, I thought the club handled it really well because it was a personal issue. It was nothing to do with the football club, but it was in the paper every day. Eventually, for
front page
about 6
every day.
weeks. And so eventually, I mean, the conversation, obviously, Lachie, him to do a press conference, to step down from the captaincy, I guess. That was the football part of it, but that he fronted the media about the first week of January, and thereafter the story might have still been generating some newspaper space and what have you, but I don't think it was then affecting the club thereafter.
It's been another summer of a multitude of off-field stories. Caro, the AFL season launch was last Wednesday night at the Sydney Town Hall. You're obviously in the same room as the chief executive, Andrew Dillon. You had some strong words, strong opinions about Andrew Dillon's leadership and his tenure in recent weeks. Did you come together and break bread?
I wouldn't say we broke bread, but I had a chat to Andrew. I felt that it would have been gutless of me not to go up and say hello, given that I'd seen him at a couple of other...
Got a thick skin, Karen. She's a beauty.
That's why we love you. It's not enjoyable, and you and I have had our moments, Lee, and they weren't enjoyable either. But, look, I was probably quite harsh. I said that Andrew Dillon would be lucky to last the year. I was angry, and I repeated this the other night at the season launch at the handling of Jude Donnelly's dismissal from the AFL, one of their corporate, not a corporate executive, but communications.
Government relations.
Yep.
Head honcho, basically.
And someone who I saw as one of Andrew Dillon's right-hand people, someone who supported him very strongly when he wasn't CEO, supported him while he was becoming CEO and post-becoming CEO. And I told him that. I repeated my disappointment. His view was that the version of events that had been reported in the Herald Sun was not 100% accurate. And I repeated that whether it was accurate or not, I didn't like the way it was handled, and I thought it had made me angry. And
is that in terms of the way that Jude's departure was conveyed to her?
Well, it was reported that Andrew said to Jude, "Richard wants you gone," and that he became emotional when he told her that. And my view is if he felt now the version now is that it was partly Andrew's decision as well. Well, that wasn't communicated at the time, according to the reporting of the situation. That's one area. I thought I think it was wrong. He's made some mistakes since becoming CEO. I don't think it was right to put Laura Kane in the position she was put in when she was put in it. Not because she was a woman, not because she was young, but it was just, I think he should have fought harder to get Brendan Gale. I mean, obviously Brendan Gale, I think, is in the right role now, and he shouldn't have been, talked down to by others on his executive not to do that. I think it put Laura in a really difficult situation. He then brought in Greg Swan, and I think it should have been more that those positions should have been clarified at the time, and he should have been tougher at the time. He should have been tougher on Laura when she chose her number 2, who was Nick Carra, when many at the AFL, including Andrew Dillon, wanted Jeff Walsh to come in and do that role. So, I mean, he did make some very difficult dismissals, which Gillan McLachlan hadn't managed to do. So he did make some strong decisions as well. But I felt all of that, I just felt real. And with that, Tom Harley coming in as number 2, now there is a genuine successor, even though Tom Harley's only just started. So that's why I made the comments. It's been put to me that I was a bit harsh by a few people at the AFL, by a few commissioners, and I accept that. But I'm glad I spoke with Andrew last week. I wouldn't say we patched things up, but at least I fronted him and spoke about it.
The public persona, I mean, Peter V'landys, who's the chairman of the Rugby League and he's the chairman of New South Wales, he's got a lot of bluster about him. There's a lot of good things probably happening in Rugby League. But it seems like because he's got a lot of bluster, he's front page of the paper every second, he's leaking stuff to the media, that our people who run our game get compared to him. And I think unfairly, because I think our game's in terrific shape, seems to me. Like the things that are important, people are going to watch it. People are watching it on TV. I mean, there's a lot of good things going on in our game.
We don't bang on about the NRL. I mean, V'landys is
No.
obsessed by the AFL. He's always. Why does he go to Vegas and talk about us? Who cares? One more point. There is a new chairman now in Craig Drummond who has certainly made all the right noises and has been quite clear that he's not going to be another Richard Goyder. He's very much a footy man, I think. Geelong president, of course, and people at Geelong say he was a fabulous president. But my understanding is that he has Andrew Dillon's back very, very strongly.